Here's a lovely movie for you. It's Haru from 1996. The Japanese director Yoshimitsu Morita. I think you should check this movie out. Let's go ahead and call it a forgotten classic because I think some people watching this channel, clicking on the video, not knowing what this movie is, I've got to explain it to you because I don't think a lot of people know about it. Coming up next. Haru is pretty highly rated on Letterboxd, and while high ratings don't usually sometimes always mean anything, I think it does in this case because I think a number of people watch this and seen it as a really interesting. I hate to call it this romantic comedy, but it kind of sort of is, and yet formally it's very different from any movie you've ever seen. Well, maybe not from any movie ever. It has a lot of intertitles, a lot of writing. And that's because the main plot of the movie has two people, two anons, two strangers on the internet, circa 1995-ish, meeting up and writing to each other. They don't really know who each other are. They meet in a movie forum. And so the movie does two things. It shows us their ordinary lives through visuals and a few scenes where they talk to people visually and audibly, of course. But then it shows us their text from the emails, and we're allowed to read their emails. And so the movie gives us this juxtaposition of their ordinary lives and then their private correspondence, in which they're kind of getting to know you, but also bearing their wants and their desires in things that are very private to them, which they're not going to talk about out loud. Of course, this is Japanese society, which is notoriously formal and polite in public. And so I find that dynamic actually pretty interesting, that here you have emails, which is what they're really doing, although there's some chat text as well from forums, and those showcase their inner lives and their inner desires. Thus, there's a lot of reading in this movie, as it turns out, intertitles a la silent movies. Although this movie is definitely not a silent movie. Plus, there's some really great music overlaid over the emails and various intertitles, which I think is really warm and fuzzy, and I really just love the music in this movie. Two people exchange emails, Hoshi and Haru. He's an ex-American football player, although he's Japanese, so he's doing a very niche thing in Japan, playing American football, and she has a lot of jobs. Actually, they both have a lot of jobs. They're both trying to find their identities. I think they change jobs, each change jobs 2 or 3 to 4 times in this movie. They get different girlfriends and boyfriends, and they really don't know what they're up to, or trying to figure out life. And then you see that in their emails. Of course, this movie is half text, so you read what they're writing to each other, and it's almost really devastating in a lot of ways. It's also funny. I mean, he meets up with someone else on the forum who is really all about sex and the physical body, and for a while they even think that this person could be a man pretending to be a woman. It turns out her name is Rose. She is a woman, and she's pretty straightforward about physical things. So he meets up with her first before he meets up with Haru. Now, of course, in this day and age, this is 2025, a lot of people meet online, and a lot of people meet first through the mediums of the internet, whether that could be straight up video, but also just plain writing and emails and forums and so on. Back in 1995, 96, it was pretty weird. It was a strange new world to do this. You didn't often meet strangers online and then meet them in public, let alone, develop a romantic relationship. And this was a fairly new phenomenon at the time, and it was weird and mysterious. Now, maybe it still is, and maybe this movie still speaks to the modern world in this very way. But I remember this, getting on in chat rooms and messing around and pretending to be different personas. It was a fun Wild West at the time, but also just the internet dating scene at this point in time. You didn't know who you were meeting, if they were playing around with you, if they were being honest. And if they were being honest, then you've kind of met a really close friend, someone who has great interests, and you're off in your own little world, and you're like an ex-American football player, and there's not a lot of people who understand you, but you meet somebody else. In this case of the movie, it's movies. They meet in a movie forum, although they have other interests and other very close similarities that allow them to bond. And you meet a person you really bond with over the internet. It is kind of weird. I feel like probably it still is today for a number of people. And that's the charm of the movie in a lot of ways. And the text, the world of the text, is this sort of alluring interpersonal bonding experience, as I've said, versus the world of the visuals. It's really interesting movie formally and visually. those alienating images of a person, individual in modern society. Very typical of somebody like Antonioni, for example. I get the vibe of that in this movie, at least, with the visual elements. These people in their worlds, they're lost, lonely, alienated. Very typical kind of stuff, but I think it's achingly well done. Then juxtaposed with this sort of interpersonal text. Thus, the movie is a really interesting formal experiment that hasn't been duplicated very well. In fact, in the age of cell phones, I don't find too much stuff like this, even though it could be there, where people communicate a lot over cell phones, and then we see their texts and text messages and emails and all that on screen. That doesn't happen as much. Here it is. This movie is showing a way to do that. This may not be easily duplicated, but I think other people could take what's formally done here and run with it. And I think this movie has one of the better meet cutes I've ever seen. At least the first sort of meeting between these people. That's what a meet cute is, and how they're only talking on the internet and they don't know each other, and for a while he thinks she's a man, and then she reveals I don't know, about a quarter to a third of the way through, she's a female. They slowly revealing themselves to each other, and then at some point they're going to see each other, and that's the first meet cute, which is wonderful. I also think this movie has an absolutely beautiful ending. And so, for those reasons, this is a fascinating movie to me. It's a bit nostalgic for me. I didn't meet anybody on the internet and date anybody on the internet, but I knew some people who did. I met some pretty good friends on the internet, as it turns out, male friends, through correspondence first and then meetups later. So this movie sort of speaks to me in that way. And I think a lot of people of my age, maybe older too, of course, they're going to understand this movie from that older internet perspective. But I see a lot of people rating this highly who are very young people. So I think you need to check it out. I saw it free available on YouTube. So if you can find it that way, God bless you, because I don't think you're going to find it any other way. So hopefully it's still up on YouTube for free. What do you think of Haru? Let us know in the comments, and please subscribe to this channel for more great content. Thank you and have a great day.